Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with hot and sweet mustard slaw. That's right, do not let that incredibly small ingredient list fool you. This is one of the great coleslaw recipes of all time. And that's not just because it's so great as a side dish, but also because it makes such a perfect relish or condiment to top things like pulled pork sandwiches or fried chicken sandwiches, or maybe even a boneless baby back rib sandwich that I may or may not be working on as we speak. So with that, let's go ahead and get started by cutting up some cabbage. And what I have here is about a 2-pound head that I'm going to cut in half because I'm kind of making a small batch here. And then once we have that halved and quartered, what we'll do is cut out the core and then slice across in like 1/2-inch ribbons. And usually when we're doing a quick coleslaw, we cut it a lot thinner because we're just going to dress it and serve it. And in that case, we usually slice it more like 1/4 inch thick. But because of the next step you're about to see, it's kind of important we cut it a little bit thicker. And I think you're going to see why shortly. So we'll go ahead and slice up about 1 pound of cabbage as shown and transfer that into a nice big mixing bowl. At which point we're going to do 2 very important things. We're going to sprinkle over about 1 tablespoon of kosher salt, which seems like a crazy amount. But don't worry, all that doesn't end up in the final salad. And then once that's in, the other thing we have to do is massage the cabbage. And not only is this to mix in the salt, but we're also kind of breaking down and softening up these pieces of cabbage. And as you'll hopefully realize later when you make this does amazing things to both the taste and the texture. So we'll perform this cabbage massage for about a minute, or cassage as we refer to it in the business, or until we can feel it's nice and flexible. At which point we'll clean up a little bit and simply let that sit for about 10 minutes. And during that 10 minutes you can give it a couple tossings. And as you do, you'll notice not only is it going to get a little more flexible, but the salt we added is also going to start drawing out the water, which is not only going to improve the flavor, but the texture as well. And then what we'll do after that sat for about 10 minutes is go ahead and transfer that into a colander and rinse it very thoroughly under cold water, which is going to wash away any of that excess salt. But don't worry, the cabbage has absorbed a good amount and should be perfectly seasoned and ready for our dressing. And then what we'll do once that's rinsed is let it sit and drain very, very well. And while that's happening, we can move on to make our hot and sweet mustard dressing. And that will begin with some mayonnaise, as well as, of course, some mustard. And we're going to use 2 kinds. We will use a classic Dijon, as well as a nice big spoon of grain mustard. Oh, and by the way, while I think Dijon and grain mustard are perfect for this, feel free to make this with good old-fashioned yellow mustard, or any other mustard you like. I mean, you are, after all, the claw of your hot sweet mustard slaw, and this really should work out quite nicely with any kind of style mustard. And yes, that was a Kawhi Leonard reference, but don't get too excited. I rep the Warriors. And then once that's in, we'll go ahead and sweeten this up with some honey. And I'm going to go ahead and add about 1.5 tablespoons. But how much you add, of course, depends on how sweet you want it. And then after our sweet, we will do some heat, in the form of probably too much cayenne. And then we'll finish up with a little splash of cider vinegar. And no, we didn't forget the salt. Remember, our cabbage was salted. But anyway, we'll go ahead and mix that up until combined, and then give it a taste and adjust if we need. But mine was perfect, which means we can go ahead and add our cabbage. And even though we've left this draining for a while, we want to make sure we squeeze it dry, which I'm just going to do in my hands. But if you were really into it, you could squeeze this in a towel. But either way, we want to get that cabbage as dry as possible before we add it. And that's it. We'll take a spatula and give that a mix until thoroughly combined. And as soon as that's been completed, you could serve this immediately if you want. But generally for things like this, I like to wrap it and pop it in the fridge for at least an hour or so. Or much longer. And it's going to give our cabbage time to absorb all those amazing flavors. And that's it. Once that's been chilled, we'll go ahead and pull it out and give it a taste. Because maybe we want it hotter, maybe we want it sweeter. You never know. But I was very, very happy with how mine tasted. So I went ahead and transferred it into a serving dish. And then went full food blogger by garnishing not only with some snipped chives, but also with some chive blossoms. Which, in case you're wondering, is what happens to a chive if you don't pick it. And by the way, those little blossoms are edible. And if you want, you can actually tear and scatter those over your salad. But I didn't. To be honest, they were just there for the pictures. And after taking a bunch of those, I grabbed a fork and went in for a taste. And like I said in the intro, despite only having a few ingredients, this is an amazingly flavorful slaw. Alright, if everything's gone according to plan, you should have the perfect balance between sweet and heat. And then above and beyond the wonderful taste, because of our salting and massaging step, our pieces of cabbage are soft and flexible, but they still retain that raw crunch as you bite in. So to me, it's the best of both worlds. Which is why this not only makes a great side dish, but just an absolutely perfect topping for things like pulled pork, or as I've already sort of mentioned, a boneless baby back rib sandwich, which I'm only showing at the end here, since if I had shown it earlier, you would have totally lost interest in the slaw, and nobody would have blamed you. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, I really do hope you give this easy and versatile, hot, sweet mustard slaw a try soon. So head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.